Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're going to be talking about the latest installment in the legendary Ghostbusters franchise, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This is going to be a hard one to talk about, to be honest with you. And if you don't know, this is the sequel to 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife, and in this film we follow the Spengler family as they live their lives as Ghostbusters in the Big Apple. But when dark secrets start to arise, a dangerous new threat emerges, threatening to start a brand new ice age. That's all I'm going to say without really spoiling anything, but Ghostbusters. This is by far one of my favorite franchises of all time. I remember watching the first Ghostbusters right when I was a little kid. I watched it not a whole lot, I watched it pretty much every Halloween, but I loved those movies. And I even like Ghostbusters 2. I know a lot of people aren't a huge fan of that movie, but it's decent. Like, I don't mind it at all. And 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife, honestly, I really like that movie. I'm one of those defenders of that movie that actually thinks that movie is better than 2. Like, I really like that movie, and I watched it very recently, and my thoughts still stand. I think it's honestly a really beautiful love letter to Harold Ramis and that entire, like, I guess you could say generation of Ghostbusters. I honestly thought what they did in that movie was really something special. So when I heard we were going to get another installment in the franchise with the same people from Ghostbusters Afterlife, I was pretty excited because I really like those characters, and I was excited to see where they would take the plot from here and what sort of shenanigans they would get themselves into, and seeing everything coming out about this movie, how we're going back to New York, we're gonna have Slimer back, it's gonna be like this really cool, like really dark villain filled with like ice powers and stuff. Like, I honestly thought this movie looked really interesting, but there were a couple things that I actually did have a lot of concerns about, which I actually did talk about a little bit in one of my other videos, my top 10 most anticipated movies of this year, where I had some thoughts about this movie where I was a little bit worried that this movie wouldn't be great. There was a lot of weird things going on where it just kind of looked underwhelming in a certain way, and it just really felt like they were trying to piggyback off of the nostalgia of the first two movies, and that really worried me because Afterlife, even though it did have some references and stuff, it was very much its own thing, I felt. Like, I actually felt like it was doing a really good job at honoring everything that came before it. Not just, oh, here, do you remember this from the last one? Oh, do you remember this? It wasn't all that. Like, there was some of it, but I actually felt like what they had there was really strong. So I was really hoping in this movie they could do pretty much the exact same thing, and we could get another really good Ghostbusters story that could be a little bit more down to earth and could be more of a classic story, but with this brand of characters that I've come to really enjoy. And it makes it even more disappointing to say, but Ghostbusters Frozen Empire really wasn't that great, and that honestly kind of kills me. I wanted this movie to be at least decent, and I can say that, yeah, it's decent, but it's incredibly mediocre, and honestly just forgettable, and that kills me. But before I get into things I really didn't enjoy about this movie, I do want to talk about a couple things that I did enjoy about this movie, starting out with some standouts in the movie. Firstly, I want to talk about Paul Rudd. I really like Paul Rudd. In the last movie, I thought he was hilarious, and in this movie, I was sure that he would be like just as funny, just as charismatic and charming as he was in that movie, and I was 100% correct. He's great in this movie. They actually do have an interesting storyline where it's him trying to be the stepfather to the Spengler children, and he's trying to become comfortable and he's trying to understand like how to be a stepdad. But that idea I actually did enjoy, and he was pretty funny in the movie as well. And the same goes for Dan Aykroyd, who I also thought was very funny. He's kind of just one of those actors, whenever I see him in any movie, regardless of a Ghostbusters movie, I get excited because he seems like a nice guy and I'm happy he's getting work, and I thought he was good in this movie. I actually really enjoyed his performance. There was something about the comedy in this movie that didn't quite hit for me. It felt a little, I guess you could say, cringe at times, which I hate using that word, but there were a couple moments that were just like, that's not very funny, but whatever. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't laugh a fair few times. There definitely are a lot of moments in the movie that I was chuckling. I did have a smile on my face, and I also did appreciate some of the visuals in this movie. I really liked a lot of the ghost designs in this movie, especially the main villain of the movie, who's Gurok. I loved his design. It was really dark and really cool looking. And I think a lot of the ghosts were like that, even though some of them didn't look great when they were like completely CGI'd. And they also did bring back Slimer in this movie, which I did really like because I like Slimer. Who doesn't like Slimer? And another thing I really appreciated about him specifically is that they actually tried to mimic the way they captured Slimer in that original film, where they used an actor in a suit and they were using more practical effects than CGI. And I really appreciated that final little attention to detail. It made me happy, and I was like, okay, at least that's nice. Like, I like that. But that's really where my pros end with this movie. I think pretty much every other element of this movie It's kind of a mess. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, and it sucks saying that because I am a huge Ghostbusters fan. I have no idea what was going on here, because there's just way too much going on in this movie. And it's actually funny, because what they have here is a pretty simple plot, honestly, all things considered. If you were to take out, like, the 8 steps that really didn't need to be in the movie considering the plot, and I'm trying to tiptoe around this because I don't want to spoil it, because I know there are going to be some people who want to watch this movie, but there's just way too much going on. There's like subplot after subplot, and they're all just thrown into this movie. It honestly feels like they're throwing shit at the wall and just seeing what sticks, you know? But the problem is none of them get any development, so they're just being constantly thrown at you. And it comes to a point where it just becomes really convoluted and really messy and over-bloated. Like, there was just way too much going on in this movie, and I can't stress that enough. I really just wanted a simple Ghostbuster story, and we really didn't get that in this movie. There's just way too much going on. And speaking of way too much, there are way too many characters in this movie. I can fully appreciate them trying to bring back, like, the older characters from the old movies, and then some of the newer characters, or some of them, all of the new characters from Afterlife. Like, that's fine. But the thing is, not all of them needed to be in this movie. There are a couple characters that literally have no point in this movie. Like, they're just there. They're just there for the sake of being there. They don't really make sense being in this story anymore. And sure, if they were to come back at like the end or something for like a quick like brief cameo or mention, like, that's fine. But all of them get screen time, and it just doesn't work because along with these old characters, they also add like a whole bunch of new characters, and some of them don't get that much to do, but some of them do. Like, there's like 3 of them that are supposed to be really important to the plot, but there's so many characters that they're trying to focus on that it feels like super messy. Like, it just feels all over the place. It feels focusless and honestly kind of empty. Like, it doesn't really feel like anything's getting any proper attention. And I'm not even saying some of these characters are even bad for that matter. Like, Kamal's character is very important in this movie, and honestly, I actually think he's okay in the movie, even though his acting sometimes is a little all over the place. Sometimes he'll say something that's like really freaking funny, and then the next thing is just like, and it's just, he's a very weird character. I don't even know how to describe it. He's 50-50 for the most part, but his character could have been something interesting, and is supposed to be important for the rest of the movie, but he barely gets any time focused on him. Because, like I said, they're focusing on everyone else, and it just feels exhausting because crucial points in this movie should have been developed more, but they don't, because there's just so much going on with all these different characters that it just feels like you can't focus on everyone, and that's a huge problem. Like, hell, by the end of this movie, you have like 11 people in Ghostbusters costumes. And listen, that's freaking awesome. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's a really cool spectacle in my head. But it just, they do nothing with it, because half the people you don't really understand why they're there, and the other half it's like, well, you didn't really need to be here either. Like, another big example is Bill Murray, unfortunately. He really didn't need to be in this movie. He doesn't really have a huge point besides being, oh, it's Bill Murray, we have to help Bill Murray in the Ghostbusters movie, which, don't get me wrong, I fucking love Bill Murray, but he just didn't need to be in this movie. The movie didn't even slightly revolve around him, or even need him in any way. It honestly feels like they were really just banking on that nostalgia and people to go, oh, I recognize this is good. No, it's not good, unfortunately. It's painfully average, honestly. It really makes me sad. And it's kind of funny because I have no other thoughts about this movie. It's just so mid. Like, there's just nothing in this movie that really makes me want to revisit it. It's just fine. Like, it's just okay. And that's why I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. But yeah, that was my opinion on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I wasn't a huge fan of this movie, but I want to hear your opinion in the comments. Did you like this movie? Did you hate this movie? Leave them down below. I'd love to hear it. And with that, if you like this video, please like and subscribe down below for more content on the channel coming pretty damn soon. And I'm going to see you in the next one. See ya.